He looks good. Like, I like his look.
Okay, wait,
I'm really good with the scruffy bald thing. I think it looks great.
Yeah.
Especially with bold glasses.
Yeah.
It's a good move.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. And I would reciprocate that with Brad and saying, the scruffy bald thing looks really good on you too. One of the things I heard recently was that you are doing something in Japan, which I think is really awesome. Obviously, we have a shared background in Japan, and I'm a huge fan of everything that's going on over there. I'm there often, and,
great.
and I heard
Good.
that the project you're looking at is in Kyoto, which I think is a pretty interesting choice. I mentioned this to you previously, but interesting choice of where you start out in Japan. Most people go to Tokyo, obviously, and then maybe some other places, and especially because Ace is so interesting and original, going to such a traditional place. And how did that come about?
It's interesting because we've had a passion to actually get into Tokyo. I mean, you knew Alex, our founder, and Alex's first ventures as a serial entrepreneur was selling vintage denim in Japan. Cool. So he would, very early on as a kid, he would buy all the old blue jeans he could find, put them in a suitcase, go to Tokyo and sell them out in Tokyo and pay his trip. So he just loved Japan. Ryan, who is the head of our brand marketing, went to school in Tokyo, met Alex originally in
really?
Tokyo. I actually very early in my career worked for Japan Airlines. So there's a true authentic root in our office around Japan. And so we've always wanted to get to Japan. Now, everybody does ask about Kyoto. Kyoto is the cultural capital of Japan, even if Tokyo is the business capital. And it is an interesting issue because Kyoto doesn't like to import Tokyo because they're the original capital. And there's a little snobbery there. It might be a little like Boston versus New York kind of thing going on. And I think they actually embrace us in an interesting way because we aren't like, oh, we did Tokyo and now we're doing Kyoto. They're like, you came to Kyoto first? That to them is, I think it's an honor, right? Yeah, so it's been really fun. I think they've been very, very welcoming. But there's a lot you have to learn in that because it is a very traditional Japanese culture there in Kyoto. Yeah. But the building is amazing. It's very Ace, and it's one of the oldest Western buildings in Kyoto.
It's like previously a post office or something?
It was actually built as the where the operators worked for the telephone system right after the war. When the U.S. came in after World War II and started rebuilding the infrastructure, the building was built as an operator center. So yeah, it was like the 50s kind of thing.
Very cool.
But it's one of the oldest brick buildings in Japan. And then Kenga Kuma is designing a hotel building that attaches to that. That's very modern, very organic, obviously in his style, but is really a brilliant piece of architecture.
Yeah, Kuma-san has done some amazing bigger stuff, so I'm really interested to see what he comes up with.
Yeah, it's a little smaller than his typical kind of
ginormous
museums and stadiums and stuff.
But
it's really fun.
That's great. So another question I wanted to ask you about is the sort of the idea of luxury in hospitality, and that the old school luxury is, we think of Four Seasons, we think of Ritz-Carlton, and some of the other great classic hotels, the Carlyle here in New York, et cetera, et cetera. And those are sort of more traditional luxury. How do you look at luxury as far as hospitality goes, vis-a-vis Ace and what you guys are designing?
Yeah, it's interesting because at Ace we've always been sort of high-low. We always have kind of felt that a customer experience, it needs to be delivered in like a consistent kind of way. And we can create a more laid-back, more casual environment, but in the end, the product is also about the service and the execution and the quality of the things you touch. And we're really big about the details and the touch. And so a lot of the, I guess, operating supply, as they say in the industry, is probably luxury grade to kind of bring that high point in. But we've always been fascinated with luxury because we're fascinated with experience, right? And you'll find a lot more experience in a luxury hotel than you do in others. So we've dabbled with that quite a bit. We did a hotel in Panama for some friends, created it. that ended up being the highest, RevPAR hotel in Panama, and we're working on a little project in New Orleans now, and a kind of a similar thing, although we're looking at luxury differently. In New Orleans, the luxury traveler in New Orleans really is coming primarily, believe it or not to get drunk
Really?
on the street. They're actually coming much more for the food. So they're coming for restaurants and all of that kind of stuff. So we're doing this hotel as a luxury guest house. Really, we have a beautiful breakfast room and all of that kind of stuff. We kind of assume you're probably going to go to some of the best restaurants in the world for dinner, so you don't need us to make you dinner. We also have a restaurant, amazing, James Beard Award-winning restaurant next door, so it works out well.
Brad, I think this is maybe like the third time you've joined us at ILC. A couple years ago, you've taken a couple years off, came back this year, which is awesome. I think you're maybe going to, surprise announcement, going to join us in LA next year would be great. But what is it that what do you enjoy about coming and joining us?
I actually think ILC is great because I think it really sponsors the people who are doing the most creative, original work in our industry. And I have a history in Starwood, and being in Starwood in the early days of multi-merger and working for Barry Sternlicht and trying to, follow his guide of like, how do you change an industry, right? And how do you take creativity and use that to really drive success of hotels? And always credit to Barry because he did it in an amazing way, and it really, really worked. And I learned a lot from that. And one of the things I learned was you have to start with originality. You have to foster creatives, which might be sometimes like herding cats. And it's not easy for the big companies to do. And so I think that the independent lodging base is in many, many ways it's the incubator of our industry, right? And I think, what you and Eric have done is kind of created this opportunity to really foster that growth of what I think is the core creative force in our industry today. I'm also very much obviously attracted to the aesthetic because, the bald, scruffy thing works here. Works on you, works on me, works on Eric. So I think we got that in common.
We're focusing on that for future speakers as well.
Oh, good.
Men and women alike.
Great, perfect.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.